Thursday. And our doctors are Dr. Carlin Barnes and Dr. Makita Wills. Did I pronounce your name right, Dr. Makita?
Yes, sir, that's right.
Sorta? What is it?
Dr. Marquita Wills.
Okay, then I did pronounce it right.
Yes.
Okay. Good morning. This is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. Dr. Carlin Barnes is a psychiatrist, and so is Dr. Marquita Wills, both psychiatrists, and they are here to talk about suicide prevention. Suicide is on the rise, with rates increasing by 30% since 1999. In 2017, suicide was the 10th leading cause of death overall in the U.S., and every year, twice as many people die by suicide than by homicide.
And they have a book, Tom. It's called Understanding Mental Illness, a comprehensive guide to mental health disorders for family and friends.
So, doctor, what are the numbers for African Americans?
Great question. Great question. So typically speaking, whites and Native Americans commit suicide at a higher rate than blacks. Blacks are at the bottom in our country of suicide. So it impacts us less than it impacts other communities, but it does still happen, and it is important to talk about.
Okay, let's start with the symptoms. What are the common symptoms or the signs of suicide?
So some of the common warning signs of someone who's thinking about suicide are they're making threats or comments about killing themselves, such as, I wish I wasn't here, or life is not worth living. There may be increase in substance abuse or alcohol use, an increase in aggressive behaviors, social withdrawal and social isolation, impulsive or reckless behaviors, and they might really start putting things in their affairs in order for contemplating death or not being here anymore, like giving away prized possessions or writing goodbye letters.
Are there always signs?
No. Unfortunately, they're not always warning signs.
I just read an article about a pastor who just committed suicide, and people online in the comments were just going in on Christians and this pastor, saying that he's a hypocrite and how could you do it because you're a man of God. And can you talk about the being a Christian and also being mentally ill and suicide and how that kind of don't go together really, or it does?
I'm so glad you brought that up. That's actually one of the key things that we wanted to talk about. And really, so often the idea is that suicide is a sin that's really embedded in our culture. It makes it very difficult, I think, for us as a society to really talk about it. The truth of the matter is suicide 90% of the time is caused by an underlying untreated mental illness. We find that 90% of people who commit suicide have either bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, depression, etc., and that impacts everyone. It impacts pastors, it impacts doctors, it impacts teachers, it impacts everyone, white, black, everyone. And so we have to kind of take it for what it is and talk about it so that people can feel comfortable enough reaching out and getting the help that they need.
Can you talk about the genetics of this? Because in terms of a predisposition from a familial standpoint?
Absolutely.
That's a great question. So as Dr. Will stated, many of the underlying causes of suicide are mental illnesses. And studies show us that many mental illnesses have a strong genetic predisposition and hereditary factors such as major depressive disorder, such as bipolar disorder, even anxiety disorders. And so there often is a genetic risk factor, a hereditary or familial risk factor that goes along to the underlying cause of the suicide.
And how do we start the conversation? Because I think that's the most difficult thing. We may see things that don't seem right. We're not recognizing some of the other things such as bipolar illness or whatever. But how do we start the conversation and become more proactive in preventing this?
I think, first of all, just watching our language. Language is so important. So being sensitive, not calling people crazy, not making it a safe environment where people know that you care just as much about their mental and emotional well-being as you do about their physical well-being. We wouldn't make fun of somebody because they had high blood pressure or diabetes. We have empathy towards it. So just all of us developing a little bit more empathy towards mental illnesses. And then being there, once you take that posture, people know that you're open and receptive and are willing to talk to them about what's going on and that you're there to listen, not to judge, not to call it a sin, but rather to really be there to listen and access help for your loved one.
Doctor, I watch a lot of television, and I see pharmaceutical commercials for different ailments, and always the side effects, not always the side effects, include thoughts of suicide.
Yeah.
Yes, there are some drugs that do have a risk for suicide, particularly in young adults. So medication should always be taken under the advisement of a physician.
Okay. The book is called. I'm sorry.
Understanding Mental Illness.
Understanding Mental Illness: A Comprehensive Guide to Mental Health Disorders for Family and Friends. And you answer a lot of questions on blackamericaweb.com, extensive, and you will be around to answer questions at 646464. Thank you, Dr. Carlin Barnes and Dr. Makita Wills. Thank you so much for participating in Get Well Wednesday, and Suicide Prevention Month is this month of September. Thank you.
Thank you for having us on.
Thank you for having us both.
All right.